Hello aviation friends, my name is Gary Trichter. I'm a DWI specialist, also a pilot, CFI, CFII, MEI, and I love aviating. There's nothing more important and more fun in my life than be able to fly. If you're like me, I know exactly how you feel. If you were to be so unfortunate as to suffer a DWI, you need to be concerned about your flying privileges. You need to be concerned about your certificate, your rating, and any authorizations. Because what you do on land may impact what you can do in the air. In regard to DWI, if it's a DWI first, the general rule is the FAA will not take your license so long as you do everything. You cross your T's and you dot your I's. And part of that T's and the I's is to properly report it. You properly report a conviction to the security branch and the FAA within 60 days. If you're outside the 60 days, still report it, but the FAA still could take action against your ratings or your certificates or your authorization, but they will treat a late notification as a mitigating circumstance. So if you are convicted of a DWI, you have to report. That's one. If you suffer a driver's license suspension that came out of the same transaction, the same DWI set of facts, you need to report that also. So you could have to report twice in writing. In the world of DWI, you have two prosecutions. You have a criminal prosecution in Texas for the DWI with a separate court, separate prosecutor, separate judge. And then you also have an administrative prosecution by the Department of Public Safety through the State Office of Administrative Hearings. Separate court, separate judge, separate prosecutors. But they proceed along parallel facts. It's exactly the same evidence, but the standards are different. With the administrative actions, it takes very little evidence to go ahead and have a suspension occur. But in the criminal courts, in order to convict, it takes a lot of evidence. But it doesn't mean that you can't win in both forms. The trick is you have to get the most capable, most qualified, most knowledgeable, most skilled lawyer you can to help you out and to steer you through harm's way in the criminal and administrative hearing so that you don't put your FAA license in jeopardy. So when you go looking for a lawyer, you want to get a lawyer who's skilled in DWI, you want to get a lawyer who's skilled in the FARs, the Federal Aviation Regulations, and you want to get a lawyer who's skilled in administrative law and doing these license revocation hearings. There's a third license issue that you need to be concerned about. If you're convicted of a DWI, the judge in that case can or may not take your license. If the judge decides not to take it and puts you on probation, and your license is on probation, probation is basically, it's a period of watch, and if you don't do anything wrong during that period, the judge will not take your license. You don't need to report that in writing to the security branch unless the judge says, one, I want you to take a rehabilitation class for alcohol or for drugs, or two, an education class is required. So if either of those two classes are required, you'll still need to report it. But a good lawyer sometimes can have that waived for you, where you don't have to do that. So if you're convicted of a DWI, you need to report. If you suffer a suspension out of the DWI, you need to report that to the security branch. And by the way, on your medical, you'll have to report both of those incidents also. Maybe. There's a way not to. If you proceed down the administrative track, you have 15 days to request a hearing. That hearing will take place from 4 to 6 months in Texas down the road. You have a temporary license that's given to you. We call that a notice of suspension and temporary license. The designation by the Department of Public Safety is called a DIC-25. And you should know that there's no interruption of your driving privileges when you get that temporary license. That temporary license says your license will automatically go into suspension at 40 days unless you ask for the hearing. That's why it's so important that you ask for that hearing. Not only does it keep your license going, it keeps it from being suspended, but your lawyer, a skilled lawyer, may discern information that may turn the DWI prosecution upside down and give you the information to win your case. If you win your case through a not guilty or through a dismissal, you can proceed through a process called expunction. Expunction is a process by which all your DWI records are destroyed. The government no longer has them. There's nothing to report. And Texas law says once the judge's order of expunction is granted, you don't need to ever say the occurrence ever took place or that the arrest ever took place. In fact, under Texas law, it acts like a time machine. It takes you back before the occurrence and says, start here again. It's a do-over. And you get to do over from then on with a clean record. Just don't mess it up if that happens to you. So what's my advice ultimately? Get the best possible lawyer that you can. Pursue the not guilty. Pursue the dismissal. Pursue something called a pretrial intervention without the educational requirements. And you're best not drinking and driving. In fact, the best thing you can do is not just drink responsibly, but avoid risk altogether as a pilot, and just don't drink if you're going to drive. That said, I'm Gary Trichter. I'm in Houston. I go all over Texas. If I can be of help to you, give me a call.